G'day everyone, welcome back to another weekly tipping video on the channel. We're going to be going over my tips for round 17 of the 2025 AFL season. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you do go on to enjoy today's video. And let's begin. Okay, we'll have a quick look at my tips from round 16, and I got myself a 6 out of 7 in what was a round that really everybody got a 7 out of 7. The one time I don't tip all the favourites win. How about that? I tried to think left field with going with the D's and it just didn't pay off at all. They were belted in the first quarter, and look, scoreboard probably favored them a bit. They did make a bit of a comeback, but the Suns just too strong. But apart from that, got all the rest of the tips correct. Port Adelaide over the Blues. I thought this game would be a lot closer, but the Blues just did not turn up and barely kicked a goal up until half time. The Dogs against the Swans, so backed in the Dogs here. And what a game this was. Had its ebbs and flows, but yeah, I think the Dogs on the outside just a bit too good and a bit too much quality over Sydney. Yeah, Melbourne over Gold Coast. I've backed in Melbourne far too many times this year and they've let me down, so I've got to start to lose a bit of trust in them, I think. Hawthorn over North Melbourne, the Pies over the Eagles. Well, yeah, credit to West Coast. They made a bit of a contest. Adelaide over Richmond and Fremantle over St Kilda. Yeah, I was pretty bullish on the Saints. They were leading at three-quarter time, but credit to Fremantle, as we said in the power rankings, they're now starting to look like a bit of a better team in crunch time. So yeah, 6 out of 7. A quick look now at my tipping competition leaderboard update. As I said before, so many people got themselves a 7 out of 7, so there's literally pages of my competition of people that got full marks, so I can't go through every name. But as for who is leading my competition, it still is a tie with Rhinos Raffles and ESPN Fan with a total score of 120. Let's now begin with the tips for round 17. How good is it? The buys are finally done, and a nice, beautiful graphic with 9 games down below on your screens. We start on Thursday night, North Melbourne taking on the Western Bulldogs at Marvel Stadium. Bit of a reality check for North Melbourne against the Hawks, going down by 80 plus points. They were just blitzed on the outside, and that's always been an issue with North Melbourne. When they don't bring enough pressure on the inside and they get belted in the midfield, they just can't defend ball movement, especially against sides like Hawthorn, which are one of the better teams in the competition. And it won't be much easier of a task facing the Western Bulldogs. I think numbers-wise, they are one of the best teams on the outside game. And look what they did against the Swans, for example. Absolutely killed them through transition. And yeah, their outside players had some good games, like 𝐓𝐿𝐼𝐶𝐰𝗶𝗹. Dale had a really good first half as well. And Fraser a bit more on the outside, half forward, he carved them up as well. So for North Melbourne, their goal just has to be try and break even in the midfield and get on top of those stoppages and clearances, because that's where they can generate some good opportunity from. The Dogs' quality forward to centre and on the outside can really carve up teams, and they've been really good this season too against those lower ranked sides. But I feel like now they're starting to turn the corner a bit, the Dogs. They could now start to beat some higher ranked teams with now Bontempelli and Darcy playing with each other. But yeah, I think we all know which way this game really should be going. I think the Dogs will be way too good on the outside with their ball movement, and yeah, beat North Melbourne fairly well here. We'll go the Dogs by 38 points. For Friday night, we've got 2 games here. First one up, the Blues taking on the Pies at the MCG. So the classic rivalry, we meet again. The Pies, last time out, they were too good for Carlton. I think it was that third quarter where they really got on top of the midfield battle and beat the Blues in their own good strength, and that's been the case for Carlton this year. They just haven't had a real dominant source of their game. Like, I think numbers wise they're up there in contested possessions, but they haven't been great at scoring from it when they win plenty of clearances, let's say, and they just look like a total mess. I thought they'd bounce back against Port Adelaide, but they just had no willingness to defend and were getting carved up through Port Adelaide's quick transitions. So there just has to be a response. Need to be tougher on the inside, and how will they face against the Pies? It's their biggest foe, so you'd think they should turn up for this game of football. Could there be questions on the Pies though? They were, I thought, well beaten in the first half against the West Coast Eagles, but when watching them play, they did look quite cute with the footy. Like, they kept on overusing the hand passes and they were fumbling a little bit and had some skill errors, and West Coast really got them back the other way through the turnovers. So look, Collingwood, it's just hard to go against them in general. It's hard to find a weakness in their side. But look, if Carlton can get on top of that contested game and get plenty of entries from it, who knows? Could they try and do a job on some of those defenders like Jeremy Howe and try and tag them out of the game? But I just think ultimately you can't trust Carlton in the minutes. They could make this a contest, but ultimately Collingwood, from a four-quarter perspective, they could get beaten in the first half like they did against West Coast, but they just always adapt so well to the game. So I think it's just hard to go against the Pies here, and they do have the Blues measure at the minute. So we'll go Collingwood in this one. I think a closer game, but yeah, Collingwood just saw away with it. And they probably should get in some returns, I am assuming, as well, with a few of those small forwards. So we'll go the Pies in this one by 20 points. Then the other Friday night game, we've got the West Coast Eagles taking on the Giants at Optus Stadium. So West Coast, yeah, really impressive performance it was for the most part against the Pies. I really like Jobe Shanahan's debut, really good aerial ability and moved fairly well on debut, so surely he retains his spot. But they came in with a plan against Collingwood. Their pressure was great and disrupted a lot of their ball movement. And as I've been saying with my power rankings, they started to link up a lot better in transition and improve their turnover numbers. So at home, big wide open ground of Optus, the Giants have looked gettable against some weaker opposition too this season. Look what the Tigers were able to do. They should have beat them. They smacked them in the midfield. And yeah, the Giants have been so inconsistent in a lot of areas, especially in the midfield. So could it be an area where West Coast could not only try and beat them with some of their ball movement, but try and belt them in that midfield? They've had quarters throughout this season, especially the last 5 or 6 weeks now, the Eagles, where they look pretty daring and they've pushed sides like the Cats. I just think ultimately it's just hard to tip the West Coast Eagles, really, with the team they are. But I will be watching with some eager eyes, thinking, hey, could they make this a contest? I think they could. But the Giants, as I've shown case this year, they've been such an efficient team. And when they get speed on their ball movement and get a lot of quick entries, they can just be far too good aerially. So, yeah, I think the Giants will find a way just through their quality to pick up a win here, and we'll go GWS in this one by 18. Saturday games now, we start off with the Dons taking on the Suns at 12:35, so yeah, a bit of an early one here at Marvel Stadium. Well, instantly off the bat, I'm thinking, well, this could be a bit of a game, really, because, yeah, the Dons have been building the last 5 or 6 weeks. They're a very young team, a lot of debutants, but, yeah, they're starting to build a bit of a backbone, I think, and show some competitiveness throughout quarters and patches of their games. But Gold Coast off the back of, a really good win against the D's. They did let them back into the contest a wee bit, but, geez, that midfield totally belted the Demons. Always away from home, you have questions on the Suns, but they look like a different team this season. However, they did lose against the Tigers at Marvel, let's remember. I don't know, off the bye, the Dons, I think they could really make this a contest. They have shocked a few teams here and there. They had a good start against Fremantle. They pushed the Lions, and, yeah, the Suns are just the team they are. You always think they have a bit of a soft underbelly, especially away from home. I think for them, they just got to try and beat them up on that midfield and try and control the game a bit, dominate them in the uncontested mark style as they usually like to do, and try and win that way through controlling the game themselves. So honestly, there's a world where I think the Dons could win this game, but yeah, as I've said, the Suns are a bit of a different team this year, and off the back of that win against the D's, that should now give them a bit of confidence. So I think they'll find a way to knock off the Dons here. Essendon do have their defensive lapses as well. They can have some unforced errors, and the Suns off the turnover, and they can lock the ball in the forward half really well when they get control. So yeah, I think the Suns will be too good here. And we'll tip them here by, I think a bit of a closest margin. We'll go Suns by 16. Next game at 4:15, we have the Cats taking on the Tigers at 𝐬𝐴 Stadium. As expected, not really many people giving the Tigers a bit of a chance here. Yeah, they're starting to get burnt out a little bit. I think that's safe to say after a good first 10 weeks or so. They're really fading out of games from the get-go at the minutes. Their entries are looking piss poor. Watching him play, and Lynch just couldn't really get a touch, now suspended, so they're going to have to dwell back again on some more younger key forwards where they've been beaten against some mature bodies the last few weeks for the most part. But Jasper Auger had some nice moments. I thought he really improved as the game grew on and kicked 2 goals. From memory though, I think last year when the Tigers took on the Cats at 𝐬𝐴, they were leading early on and made it a bit of a contest, so I'm interested, could they do it once again? But yeah, I think we all know who we're going to be tipping here. The Cats just should be far too good for Richmond, especially down there at the Cuttery. They've been gettable here or there in some areas, but ultimately I think they should just be way too good on the outside and control the game for most of the 4 quarters. So we'll go the Cats in this one to be too good for the Tigers, and they should win this one well by 45 points. Saturday night games now. First night we have the Lions taking on Port Adelaide at the Gabba. So Brisbane coming off the bye and Port Adelaide coming off a really good win against the Blues. But they're in a sort of awkward spot, Port Adelaide, where they're still in the hunt for finals technically, but just a low percentage. And how will they fare? I think since the bye they've looked a lot better, but do give them a mulligan against Sydney. I thought they just were outclassed and out-hunted, and look, the Lions have been a little bit up and down at home this season. So if they leave the door open, Port Adelaide, I think their ball movement since the bye has really started to improve. They're linking up better. They're putting a lot more pace on it. And look what the Giants are able to do. Quick ball movement off from the back half. Totally outdid them. They got quick injuries and they killed them out in the back. And through their efficiency, they were really good. So can Port Adelaide try and replicate that? That's going to be the question. Both teams have actually been fairly inefficient going inside 50 when you look at the goals per inside 50 numbers. I think both teams are sitting in the bottom 6. But look, at home, I'll just back in Brisbane here. Port Adelaide could make a push, but given they're out in the minutes, they could have games where they just turn up flat, and I think Brisbane, they are on a charge for locking in top 2. They've dropped some games here or there, but I think in the midfield they just should be too good. They'll be a touch too quality over Port Adelaide, and yeah, get the job done, especially in the trenches. So Brisbane to beat Port Adelaide here, and we'll go them by 20 points. Then the other Saturday night game, we have St Kilda taking on the Hawks at Marvel Stadium. A gallant defeat it was for St Kilda. Probably should have won that game, to be honest. They kicked the first goal of the last and got the game over to over 2 goals. But yeah, the Saints, as we've said, they've been a really good ground level team, and they came with a plan against the Dockers. They just really suffocated them and didn't allow them to move the ball freely, and yeah, they smacked them in the clearance game. So could they do the same here against Hawthorn, where throughout games and losses the Hawks have had this season, they've been gettable in the midfield. So that's definitely going to be the source for the Saints. Try and get it done on the inside. And given this is at Marvel, the Saints, well, they can have games where their front half pressure looks electric, and they can get some great ball movement from the back half. But Hawthorn, ever since a bit of the lull a few weeks ago, they've got 3 wins in a row, looking a lot more tougher in the inside too. And yeah, throughout most of the season, their ball movement and link-up play has been really impressive to watch. Again, the Saints could definitely come in with a plan to try and combat that, really bring the pressure and not allow them to move the ball so freely. But I think Hawthorn's quality should be a bit too good here for the Saints, and yeah, I think they'll find a way to knock off the Saints here. But you know, they're such an enigma, St Kilda. I feel like I should be backing him in with one of these games where they aren't the favourites. But yeah, I'm liking Hawthorn in the minutes, and yeah, their confidence is up and about. So I go the Hawks here, and we'll tip them by close margin. We'll go them by 14. Sunday games now, just the 2 ones. First one up, we have the Swans against the Dockers at the SCG. Plenty of talk about the SCG at the minute. The turf was terrible last Friday night with a concert happening, but apparently it's all good to go. This game will be at the SCG. But yeah, Fremantle, interestingly enough, they've beaten the Swans the last 2 times at this particular venue. So yeah, a bit of a happy hunting ground here for Fremantle. So how will they fare here? Yeah, the Swans, they're looking like a bit more of a complete team, I guess you can say. As I've said before, they're walking a bit tall with a few of those key ins, especially 𝐼𝐼𝐿𝐼𝐿. Their ball movement's looking a lot more sharper now, and just Sydney-like from last year. They still have some composure issues, and I think they've been pretty gettable with transition. Port Adelaide were able to move the ball end-to-end a bit too easily, and that's how the Dogs were able to get a lot of their goals, just through open play, absolutely carve up the Swans. And Fremantle this season have been a really good ball-moving side. At times, like there can be times where they become a bit timid and sides really bring the pressure, like St Kilda are able to, for example. So that's an error for the Swans. Try and win the midfield battle, especially. They were able to beat the Dogs as well in the midfield. So could they do the same to Fremantle, try and negate Strong and Brayshaw out of it? Hard one to tip though, to be honest, especially when you look at the Swans. Was that their grand final last week? Will they now turn up flat this week, or they just keep on punching and really improve their game? But yeah, Fremantle, they are looking great, and they have had games where they look gettable, but credit to them, they just finding a way to get 4 points, and I think that's what's so important for this football team, given they did drop out of finals last season. I do like Sydney here. They are now starting to improve, and I could definitely see a world where they win this game. But yeah, I just think Fremantle will find a way to win this one over the Swans. As I said before, the Swans have been pretty gettable defensive-wise, and Fremantle have been a pretty good ball-moving side this season. I remember this game last year, Fremantle carved them up with points from the back half, and they moved it a bit too easily. I could definitely see that being the same story here. So I think Sydney are good enough to negate the midfield and win that area, but look, their accuracy has let them down a bit as well, but there should be a week where that does bounce back. But I'm liking Fremantle here, and you've always got to go a tip that isn't the favourite, so I'll go the Dockers here and make it 3 wins in a row at the SCG. We'll go through in a close one by 8 points. Final game of the round, we have the Crows taking on the D's at the Adelaide Oval. Melbourne, I've backed them in way too many times. I've tipped them against the Suns twice this season, got them horribly wrong. I tipped them against Port Adelaide, got that wrong. I just need to give up on them, but watch them win this week if I do tip Adelaide, let's say. But looking at this one, it is hard to go against the Crows. They are a team in really good form in the minutes. They're looking at the record, 4 out of the last 5, and again, they really should have won, to be honest, against Hawthorn, where the damage should have been done in the first half. But yeah, Adelaide, as we've said this season, they're looking great with the ball movement, but what I haven't really said is they're defensively just looking so great in the minute. They're looking a lot more of a reliable team when you watch them defend ball movements and just their tools. They're a very tall team, but just any time there's an aerial contest, you know they're going to win it. Worrell's fantastic defensively. Mark Keane's tremendously improving this season, and Dan Curtin on the wing, as soon as he made the move, I'm like, yeah, this is really advantageous, because he's lining up on a skinny winger and he's getting the job done in the air. So yeah, I'm really liking the look at the Crows at the minute. The D's are just hard to go with, but as I say, I think, as I've said before, I think they'll continue to be Hawthorn and some good team sides. Like, they can still bat a bit in the midfield and get it done, winning the midfield contest against opposition. But yeah, their entries per inside 50 can be a bit of a letdown. But I still think they'll pick up a scalp here or there, the Ds, but Adelaide at home, they've been building a fortress there, and I think they'll be a touch too good over the Ds from their outside game. And yeah, their prowess up forward and just around the ground early should be too good. So yeah, I'll go the Crows in this one to win well, and we'll tip them by 25 points. So everybody, they're all my tips for round 17 of the 2025 AFL season. So how good is it? Finally, no more bye round, so back into the swing of things of 9 games. So let me know down below what your tips are going to be. Are going to be going with any upsets? Always love to hear your people's opinions. And that's it from me, everybody. Take care, and until next time, I'll talk to you later. See you later, fellas.